I wanna take the conversation off of a player that we could have but we don't have. It shifted to a guy that we do have now and made a huge impact in
I'm about to say
tonight's
Drew
game.
Peterson.
Yeah,
I was about to say Drew Peterson, but
Drew Peterson.
what a fumble on that one. But I mean, I want to get you guys know me. I've been handing out my flowers all week. Nimi, I handed out my flowers the other night to Nimi, the other night to Peyton Pritchard. Tonight, Drew Peterson, man. Like Drew Peterson coming in to this game had played 30 minutes all season, mainly garbage time. No disrespect. Comes in tonight, plays the entire second quarter, plays 9 minutes in the third quarter, and played clutch minutes here tonight in the game. And there was a point where I'm sitting there and I'm saying, get Drew Peterson back in the game.
No way.
I swear, Rob, I swear. Listen, Drew Peterson, sharpshooter, known for his sharpshooting. I didn't know he had that defense in his name. I didn't know he had that. He was able to hold his own all night long. There were a couple times where some backdoor cuts, and even Brian Scalabrine said it in the broadcast where there was a play where LeVert slipped through the back door to beat the shot clock, and even Scal said Drew had that 98% covered. 98%. Right. He turned his head for 1 second and boom, LeVert went backdoor. Man, talk about staying. We always talk about the stay ready group. Drew Peterson, two-way deal, not really getting his minutes here in this Celtics rotation. You probably thought that, if they're going to go anywhere deep in the bench, it's going to be Drew Holiday. Drew Holiday. It's going to be Jordan Walsh. It wasn't. It was Drew Peterson, and he came in tonight. I don't know his minutes. I'm going to quickly off the box score. I believe he played upwards of 20 minutes. He had 25 minutes tonight. And he was huge, got some rebounds, had 5 points in the first half. I think he finished with 8 or 9. So credit to Drew Peterson, man. Not Drew Patterson, Drew Peterson. Gotta give my flowers where credits are due, man. I was ecstatic. There was a point, Rob. There was. This is not my LeBron James moment. There was a moment where I said, I want Drew Peterson back in this game. And what did Joe Mazzulla do? He put Drew Peterson in that game late in the fourth quarter.
That was a wild card. That was a wild card for sure.
There could have been a bit surprising. Isn't it a bit surprising that out of all the players who play in Maine, right, who are in and out of the Maine Celtics rotation, Drew Peterson, J.D. Davison, Baylor Shireman, Jordan Walsh, that ends up being Drew Peterson. Drew Peterson's had a couple of nice performances up in Maine, but some of these other guys have lit it up as well up there, and yet Drew Peterson's the guy who gets the call up and ultimately the minutes tonight. And Justin, you said it. I mean, he was phenomenal in those minutes, and he stayed ready. That's what staying ready looks like. Straight up. I mean, if you're not playing the entire season, it's game 20 tonight. Game 20. He's not seeing minutes at all, and he comes into the game, and he looks ready. He's ready to take those shots. I even looked at him at the free throw line tonight. He looked there was a moment where he was communicating with Joe Mazzulla on the sideline, and in that moment, you couldn't tell that he was a player that hadn't played the entire season. He looked like a normal rotation player communicating of what we're going to do on this next play right before halftime, I believe. And unfortunately, the communication was a little off because Donovan Mitchell streaked down the floor and Drew Holiday ended up fouling him right before halftime. And that gave the Cavs a halftime lead. But those kind of moments right there, that shows a lot for a player who sits on the bench on ice the entire season and then can come into a game and make a definitive impact. And I'll add this too. When we watched Drew Peterson in the preseason, he had a couple good moments later in the preseason, but I thought in those Abu Dhabi games, specifically the first couple of games there, the first 3 games of preseason, looked at Drew Peterson and went, he's a little stiff out here. Maybe not the most active player on defense on the offensive end, but he's considerably grown since that moment, and he did show late in the preseason because that's really the last time we saw him in bulk minutes outside of Maine. With that portion of the preseason, it's like, he's kind of getting his legs under him now, and he came out tonight and made a definitive impact. And I even texted you guys this. Could he be potentially in the future? Now, this is thinking way down the line here. When a team overpays Sam Hauser for his services, because inevitably after we're paying all these players, the Celtics, they're just paying an astronomical bill for every single starter right now, and it's going to come to an end one day where we have they can't pay this guy like we saw with Grant Williams 2 years ago. Grant Williams, not exactly the guy we're going to pay here. Sam Hauser, I think a team's eventually going to give him a nice payday in the future for what he's done with the Celtics and how he's developed with the Celtics. And maybe when that day comes, Drew Peterson, you never know. Drew Peterson could be that next guy who comes up through Maine. He's a two-way player, of course, and establishes himself as a standard player. That's thinking way down the line here, but
it is. I mean, we might not see Peterson. We might not see Peterson ever again. Like, this is like when we were talking about is Walsh the next O'Shea Brissett, and now we haven't seen Walsh since we talked about that.
But that's a good that's good you bring up Walsh's name because you'd think Walsh would get the run, and Walsh has shown up from time to time this season. You've seen him at times get subbed in. He's got some first quarter burn, second, third. Like, he's played, but he hasn't given you anything offensively, right? Yeah. And I think that's where it's like. And again, what have I been saying here? I'm going to be a broken record, guys. Fair warning for the foreseeable future. 3 and D. Yeah. Joe Mazzulla wants a guy that can space when Jason Tatum's operating and play efficient defense and run the other team off the 3-point line. What did Drew Peterson do tonight? Played good D, and he spotted corner, and it was a shooter for Jason Tatum to facilitate.
This was something that I didn't know. I was not familiar with Drew Peterson having such a stiff defense. Like, he keeps his hips locked on the defensive end. Like, he's just so engaged defensively, and he has such solid read. And then he comes down and then offensively, obviously we know him more of a sharp shooter. Comes in, didn't really shoot the rock too great tonight, but he did his job. He spaced out the floor. He stayed there in that corner, spaced on the wing, and I'd say he took maybe 5 threes and hit maybe 2 of them. He did his job. He spaced the floor for guys like Tatum and Porzingis to be able to facilitate, and then he took the open look. If he was passing up that open shot, we talk about it with Sam Hauser all the time. Oh, he's missing all these threes. Should we be concerned? No. When you're dealing with a sharp shooter, a really good shooter at that, you'd be more concerned if they're passing up those open looks rather than not taking those open looks. So just credit for Drew Peterson coming in tonight. Assistant coach, one of the Celtics assistant coaches they interviewed at halftime said, I don't even think Drew Peterson knew he was going to play tonight. So just credit for him. Like, remember, and I was telling my girlfriend this during the game. She's like, "Oh, do you think he's getting yelled at, like if he fouls or misses a shot?" And I'm like, he's one of the greatest players in the entire planet. Like, only so many players make the NBA. Like, Drew Peterson, give these guys credit. He might not be getting minutes on this Celtics roster, but he's killing it down in Maine, and he's probably killing it in any. I said, I play basketball. I'm not in the NBA. He'd kill me, So. Credit for
if you never got hurt though, you could have made it.
Staying ready, yeah, that's true. My
friend, every time.
If people don't know, I got a G League tryout and my back went out like a week before. But man, why would you remind me that? Man, I could have been a millionaire. But just in all seriousness, flowers to Drew Peterson. Second night of a back-to-back. I know we'll get into the Miami game later on in the show, but I dare I say I'd love to see him play tomorrow. I don't know Maine's schedule, but I mean, here's the thing with these two-way players and with these guys who don't get traditional minutes in the rotation. My thing is, can I consistently see you do that? And we kind of talk about that with Jordan Walsh. Walsh had a killer preseason. Can we see this come regular season, and can we see it consistently? So I want to see Drew Peterson tomorrow night locking up Jimmy Butler on the wing and draining threes on Tyler Hero down the other end. So great game tonight from Drew Peterson. And had we won this game, I'd be hyping this up like the Cavaliers were hyping up that Dean Wade game last year. This was our Drew Peterson game.
I think Drew Peterson, too, what's like between him and Walsh, really, I think he has a little bit more of an offensive bag than Jordan Walsh. I think he has a couple more handles in his game. I think he's a better finisher. He has that floater we saw in the preseason as well. That I think Jordan Walsh is a little bit janky when it comes down to the rim. When he's driving to the rim, it's like, all right, Jordan Walsh, maybe not the best of finishers out there, but what went wrong for Jordan Walsh this season, this is going to be a joke, is opening night. He couldn't make the 3 that set the record. He was part of the cast who missed all those threes at the end of the game. Jordan Walsh, he's having a great preseason. Couldn't. After that, I was like, sit down, Jordan Walsh. You can't make one of these threes and break the record. But in all seriousness, though, between those two players, I expect to see Jordan Walsh, though, later in the season, maybe a little bit. Because I think we can all say that Jordan Walsh in the preseason at one point in time was looking like, maybe a rotation player for the Celtics. Now we haven't seen him at all, but we all know he has defensive intangibles. He does have a silky smooth shot. However, I don't know if he has as much of an offensive bag as Drew Peterson, as we saw tonight. But on these main players, it's great that we're actually talking about these guys because, number one, they don't get enough conversation. And number two, this is the bread and butter for the Celtics now. Really looking at all the players coming off the bench. Peyton Pritchard, 26th overall pick. Sam Hauser, former two-way player. Neemias Queta, he was a two-way player for the Sacramento Kings. We signed him. He was a two-way player for us. He was a two-way player for us. We signed him to a standard deal. Cornette, as you said, Justin, it's all these guys. We're able to develop them and bring them up and be actual rotation players that we're using on a nightly basis. And now we're looking at Drew Peterson. We haven't seen much of Jordan Walsh at all this season, but we know those two guys. We're looking at them going, maybe sometime in the future. J.D. Davison, too. He's lighting up. He's main Celtics all-time leading scorer. I haven't seen much of him at all because of all the guards. Yeah, all the guards off the bench, but J.D. Davison, he has some promise, too. So the Celtics, it's great to see these guys actually come in and produce at the level in which one day we might actually see them produce at.
I feel like we're in a summer league.
I was just about to say that. Justin has a big old smile on his face right now because we are sitting here talking about
my summer league alumni just ball out in regular season. It's just making me tear up.
No, you're right, Seamus. These players don't
Super Bowl here.
They don't get a lot of love or run time on
enough
CTW.
love by me, man. I don't know about you guys. They get enough love by me.